Reynolds for this position.
Is there any further comment? Will the clerk please call the roll on the nominees for president of the Bethlehem City Council? There's some confusion, but certainly you can vote for one of the three, and as the rules have been revised, you may vote for who you please. Each person is to be called on by the clerk and to set forth their vote for the president of council for years 2012 and 2013.
Mrs. Belinsky. Mr. DiGiacinto. Mr. DiGiacinto.
DiGiacinto.
Ms. Dolan.
Councilman Reynolds.
Mr. Donchez.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Evans.
Evans.
Mr. Raschuti.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
I would ask the city clerk to announce the results of the poll.
For Mr. DiGiacinto, 2. For Mr. Evans, 2. For Mr. Reynolds, 3.
I would note that the rules require a vote of 4 for this office, and we will continue in this process until we elect the president. Is there any comment prior to revote? I would again ask the city clerk to call the roll for the presidency of Bethlehem City Council for years 2012 and 2013.
Mrs. Belinsky. Mr. DiGiacinto. Mr. DiGiacinto.
DiGiacinto.
Ms. Dolan.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Donchez.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Raschuti.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
For Mr. DiGiacinto, 2. For Mr. Evans, 2. For Mr. Reynolds, 3.
May I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, absolutely.
I think that now that, while I certainly appreciate the support of Councilman Dolan, I appreciate the support of Councilman Raschuti and all of my colleagues. I do think that one thing that we have often seen in City Bethlehem is we've talked about civility and the greater good, and we certainly talked about that earlier tonight with Mr. Maurer. And quite frankly, I think that we are not. It seems clear that we could go on in this exercise for quite a number of votes. But with that in mind, and like I said, this is a board that has always prided itself on civility and working together. And I think, as Councilman Dolan eloquently said before, it is about running meetings. And I don't think that we need to continue this exercise that I do believe, if it continues, will probably become a little more contentious. Or lead to further discussion that we might not need. So with that in mind, I will pull my name out of consideration for another round of voting.
When the special committee convened and we talked about this process, which comes right out of Robert's rules, if it takes all night, it's our job to come to a decision. And I am disappointed with Councilman Reynolds, considering he has 3 votes and the other council members have 2, that he would withdraw his nomination. If he does not wish to be council president, I think he should state so.
I certainly do wish to be council president. I'm just being, I think that by looking at this, and I think that quite honestly, that when I look through it, I know that you said that there's 3 votes here. I am not of the belief that it will get past 3 votes, judging by other people. And I think that in just as far as I'm concerned, I think the council presidency, it's while it is important, while it's something that I'm certainly honored to be considered for, I was hoping that these first couple of times through that there would be support for it. I think that it's something that I would do a good job in. I agree with you. At the same time, I like I said, I accepted the nomination. I was hoping that this was going to be solved before this. But at the same time, I think that at a time, and we may disagree on this, I just think that at a time someone needs to step aside to move the process forward, and that's just my personal opinion.
Well, logic would dictate that those who have fewer votes would be the ones who would step aside. And according to Robert's rules, we are supposed to vote for the person who is the most qualified, not for the person who, for any other reason. I have and obviously you can tell that this is not something that we had planned ahead of time. Councilman Reynolds, I nominated you because you have the most experience. The other 2 gentlemen who've been nominated have not been reelected yet. No offense, they've had 2 years of experience on city council. And Councilman Reynolds, you've gone through re-election. The citizens of Bethlehem have re-elected you. I think you're showing yourself to be a conciliatory person, which is a good sign for someone who wishes to be president and who would serve as president, as opposed to someone who is not willing to compromise, which is, again, a good sign. So I don't know if this is going to meet your desire to, I don't know what the rush is. It's 10 of 8, and this is our second meeting. I'm still going to, you don't have to vote for someone. Withdrawing your nomination doesn't make a difference. I want someone who's going to be council president who has experience. It's that simple. Let me just finish one thing. I know from having an excellent council president like Bob Donchez, and I know from having been on council with someone and on other boards with folks who were not such great presidents, didn't have experience, didn't have the right temperament, mostly didn't have experience, that it slowed down council. It made things very difficult. And I have seen this very situation before where the very persons who have the right temperament, the humble nature, to be able to step down and say, well, I don't want to make an embarrassing scene, we will do that. And those who are, more determined, perhaps politically, will hold firm. But this is very disappointing. We need the right person. We need someone who has experience, Councilman Reynolds. This is our city council. It has nothing to do with how people feel about you or anyone politically. You're a teacher, just as Mr. Evans is. You have experience with crowds, you have experience with people, and you've proven yourself. It certainly has nothing to do with political affiliation, because as Mr. Donchez and I discussed the other day, you must subserve your political beliefs. You must become less of an activist if you were to be president. And I trust that you could do that. I'm disappointed that you would fold so easily. And to be honest, I'm disappointed that those with less experience would not defer to those with more.
Mr. Spinoni?
Councilman Reynolds?
I think that, once again, Councilman Dolan, I think I would agree about the experience, and I certainly agree with many of the things you said. I'm humbled by the support you have shown me. I think your reading of Robert's Rules is one that I agree with. At the same time, and like I said, I don't take this lightly, but I think at some point, and once again, it may be that it means I don't get to be council president for the next 2 years. But at the same time, I think when you look at this board, and when you look at the idea of leadership, and you look at the reason why the citizens elect us and put us in these chairs. Like I said, I certainly appreciate your support, and I think that it's certainly something that is something that I'm proud of. And I think that, as you said, even though we sometimes disagree on politics, having to do with the process and these kind of things, and I sat through those rules committee meetings with you as well. It's something that I do think that it's the time though, is that I know you said it's 10 of 8. It's not my intention to want to go through several roles of voting as far as this, when I think that we could have a lot of votes here, and it appears from these first 2 times that people aren't going to step aside, and I think that it is being consistent with some of those things that you said. I think that it is leading by sometimes deciding that for the good of the body, I would take a step back, because I don't want to see this get drawn out to the point where I think it might take away from some of that civility that we have built up, and I fear that it may. It's just my personal opinion. Like you said, you certainly are honest when you said we didn't talk about this, so there can be no worry there about any sort of a backroom deal or anything, because we certainly are having a disagreement here about this, but it's kind of my feelings of where it was headed. But just my personal feeling. But once again, I certainly appreciate the support that you've offered. Thank you.
Is there further comment from council? I would again ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky. Mr. DiGiacinto. Mr. DiGiacinto.
DiGiacinto.
Ms. Dolan.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Mr. Donchez.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Raschuti.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Evans.
For Mr. DiGiacinto, 3 votes. For Mr. Evans, 4 votes.
Resolution. If I may, I believe it's now nomination or an order for the office of Vice President of Bethlehem City Council to serve for the years of 2012 and 2013. Again, nominations do not require a second. Yes, sir.
I'd like to nominate J. William Reynolds.
Mr.
I'll
DiGiacinto.
nominate Mrs. Dolan.
Mrs. Belinsky?
DiGiacinto.
Are there any other nominations? Is there any comment from council on the nominations? I see none. I would ask the clerk to call the roll for the office of Vice President for the years 2012 and 2013.
Mrs. Belinsky. Mr. DiGiacinto. Mr. DiGiacinto.
Mrs. Dolan.
Ms. Dolan.
Ms. Dolan.
Mr. Donchez.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Raschuti.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. DiGiacinto, 1 vote. Ms. Dolan, 2 votes. Mr. Reynolds, 4 votes.
Congratulations.
I would like to begin by thanking everyone for the support. The election process, I know, is a difficult and a little bit more complex. With regard to the election, we certainly see each other through different lenses and what our strengths are, what our weaknesses, what our abilities, and what our judgment is. And in the end, we had multiple candidates who made the decision a little more complex for all of us. We settled in a democratic process. We followed our rules, and it's done. Time to turn our focus back to the attention and focus on the city. I'm confident that will be done by this council. Before I turn to courtesy to the floor and bring this meeting to an end, I want to turn our attention to something that we can all agree on. Number one, that's to welcome Michael Raschuti. Michael, I know you do a great job and will be a great addition to our council, so thank you. And I would also personally like to thank Gordy Maurer. I know you're on your way out, and I want to let you know it was a great privilege to be on council with you, to get to know you, and have the opportunity to sit next to you these past couple of years. I learned a lot. I really appreciate the time we talked before and after meetings, as well as everything that you provided to us during the meetings, and without the knowledge and experience that really can't be replaced. So thank you. God bless you. We look forward to seeing you in the future. Enjoy. With that, we will turn to courtesy of the floor. Public comment, not to exceed a 5-minute time limit. Anyone would like to address council? Steve.
Stephen Antalik, 737 Ridge Street. After this very informative short course of political science, for which I hope I can get some postgraduate credits, I'd like to read a statement from an editorial, which is really appropriate. Politicians' politics. People clear outside of political game are sometimes amused at the antics of those who are in it professionally for the fun or prestige or power or profit to be derived therefrom. The ordinary voter may have worked up interest in a certain issue and may be talking with his friends about the serious qualification of some prospective candidates for public office. Suddenly, he discovers that the politicians discussing exactly the same issue or candidates are talking about far different points. They are concerned with their man's ability to get votes or hand out jobs or sway crowds with his oratory or some other item that has much to do with his actual experience or fitness for public office. When the voter hears the rumblings of a political row based on such points, he very often shrugs his shoulders and says, "That's politics," and goes about his private business. That is where he makes a big mistake. He forgets that he really has a big interest in that political game. If he played his part with his more keenness and intelligence, he might force a change for the better in the rules and aims. Politics might then serve the public first and politicians last. This editorial is 100 years old, and it really hasn't changed today. But I like to resurrect an old issue. Whenever there's a new face on council, I feel obliged to get into the futility of no return. Previously, a council member, as part of the ordinance, was upset with the reduction of courtesy of the floor from 12 minutes to 5, calling it draconian. But once on council, they said it worked. Another member who was elected to council prior to being elected and in the public sector said that he would gladly give me all the time I need to say what I need to say. But once as council member, the 5-minute rule stood. So I'm going to ask the newest face on council whether he would consider amending the rule of 5 minutes, because way back when, it was unlimited. And unfortunately, the fact is that the president of council at that time didn't use his Robert's rule to gavel down the person to cut that 45-minute talk down to something reasonable. As a result, we got the 12-minute rule than the 5. So, as the woman that said earlier, we heard you tell us how you're going to serve us as our servant, which would mean that what we have to say is important. But as she said, once you're elected, you become royalty, and you don't care what we have to say. So, are you going to cut it maybe down to 3 minutes? I don't know. But many people here, especially one gentleman behind me here, usually have something very important to say, and 5 minutes, bango. As I said before, you need to put a trapdoor here. So the president of council can push the button and you go down into the basement. That saves a lot of embarrassment, okay? And the police don't have to come in. So all I'm saying is, the gentleman newly elected and now new council, consider this. You ask us to vote for you because you are a servant. Are you going to amend or propose an amendment to put the rule back to something more reasonable rather than 5 when it was unlimited, then to 12 and down to 5? And as one member of council called it draconian, which it really is. So it's up to you. So I would certainly look for a, what's the term now, a resolution precisely addressing that to see whether you're willing to do for us what you said you would do before you were elected. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antalix.
Samantha Schwartz, 34 West Elizabeth Avenue. I manage the Downtown Bethlehem Association. I know we don't hear it a lot, but I'm here to publicly say that I think the city is doing an unbelievably fantastic job, and I want to thank the mayor, I want to thank all the department heads of the city for the Christmas season that we just had, and it's been amazing. And in the economy that we had, I don't know if you guys know, but our businesses in the 2 downtowns of Bethlehem have said that they had a fantastic year. On average, about a 50% increase in business for them. So that's really just phenomenal. From our city looking beautiful, I know we didn't have a ton of snow yet, but we shine, we sparkle, people come from all around. And I know that our staffs in each department, from the electrical bureau to the streets department to every department I'm missing right now, I know there's a ton of them, they all work very hard. And I think it's really, really important to say that as council people, you support all the events that we have in the downtown. I know as a DBA, we run over 100 events in our city, and that people do come from all over to come to Bethlehem, and we had a really great season. So thank you, boys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Any other public comment? This side. Any comment? Okay. With that, this meeting is adjourned.